Hi everyone, welcome back to my fan page, and as promised, I'm here to read you a couple of pages from my new book, One Shoe, which is soon to be released on Amazon. For those of you that do not know what my book is about, it's three stories, and each story is broke down into a chapter. So there's a total of three chapters, and each chapter tells a complete story of how one shoe ended up in or on a highway. The first chapter is called Bernard Daniels, and it starts off like this. Bernard, a typical married father with two kids, was fully jolted awake before kicking off his covers when his wife yelled from downstairs, "Okay, guys, rise and shine, breakfast is ready." Must she be so loud, he thought to himself. As he laid there staring up at the ceiling, he heard two bedroom doors throw open, and both teenagers trampled down the stairs, making loud, thudding sounds. I guess they are going to be just as damn loud as she is, he thought. He quickly sat up and jumped out of bed. He lumbered over to a half-covered chair where he had laid out fresh work clothes the night before and quickly pulled on his pants barely before forcing in each of his legs before zipping and buttoning. He was even less graceful with his uniform shirt. Once he had put on his mismatched socks and his tired work boots, he headed into the bathroom. While standing in front of the sink and mirror and slowly shaving, Bernard heard his wife scream again, reminding him to hurry because his food was getting cold. Silently cussing, he finished shaving and put the razor away. He then wiped his face dry with a towel and for the first time noticed that he had nicked himself. The cut wasn't all that bad, actually, but there was something about the sight of the blood on his face that made him smile. Bernard jumped when his wife once again called for him from downstairs, this time more forcefully, as she stressed that he was very late. Therefore he focused on his bleeding neck and looked at the bright bubble of wet blood on his cut. He took his finger, wiped the fresh blood, and put his finger into his mouth, sucking it like a hungry baby with a fresh milk bottle. Once again he smiled while looking at his reflection in the mirror, then turned and left the bathroom, making sure to grab his work jacket before going downstairs. He didn't waste any more time before jumping into his work van and rushing to work. He said goodbye to his wife and found that the morning air was crisp, despite the fact that the sun was shining brightly. He rolled his window down to let the cool air blow through his hair and found that the sensual pleasure of feeling wind blow through one's hair wasn't just for women. It felt like delicate fingers running through his graying, dark blonde hair. When the first gray strands began to appear, he didn't mind them too much because he just plucked them out with a pair of tweezers. But recently the gray was coming in faster than he could pluck, and he didn't like that too much. "Guess it's time to dye it," he said aloud to the face staring back at him in his rearview mirror. "Eve does it all the time. It can't be too hard." Bernard had been a natural when it came to electronics, and especially in the art of cable installation. He began learning the craft immediately after high school, mostly because the promise of receiving free cable for as long as he worked with the company was just something he couldn't refuse. It only took him about a year on the job before he became the company's go-to man. Any time a difficult problem arose, he was always the one that people would call first because chances were very good that he would know how to fix it. When Bernard had been working for Delta Communications for just over 2 years, he first met Eve. She had just moved to Madison and took the job with Delta as one of their receptionists. On what proved to be a fateful morning, he walked into the office to drop off some paperwork when he suddenly saw her sitting behind the counter writing out a receipt for a customer. She absolutely took his breath away. Most guys probably wouldn't have found her that attractive, but there was just something about her that blew him away. She had long brown hair the color of caramel and the brightest blue eyes he had ever seen. But what captivated him most was her smile. It arrested the deepest part of his heart. Bernard simply couldn't resist her, so he just walked right up to her that morning and introduced himself. A mere 6 months later they were married, and just 5 years later they already had 2 children. As the wind blew through his hair, he found himself thinking about their marriage. They had already been married for 16 years, and he was quite sure that everyone thought they lived a happily fulfilled life. Eve seemed content, as she was always laughing with the kids. Everyone always seemed to either have something to do or somewhere to go. Admittedly, Eve and the kids had often tried to include him in their fun. He even tried a few times, but he just didn't like the things they did. Strangely, sometimes watching them have so much fun even infuriated him, but he hid it and always kept a big fake smile on his face. Over time, he invented excuses as why he couldn't go, and eventually they stopped even asking. Leaving his thoughts, Bernard entered in through the prestigious security gates of the new Country Club Estate subdivision, and then took an immediate right onto Diamond Drive. Almost immediately, a large, genuine smile came upon his face, because he could see that she was walking down her driveway towards her new jet-black colored Mazda Miata convertible. For the first time in that moment, he realized that she was really the only thing that brought him pure joy or happiness anymore. When she saw his van, she politely waved and smiled at him. He had installed her cable and internet services about 2 months prior. Her name, Michelle, would forever be embedded in his brain. He even loved the way her name tasted as it came out of his mouth, and he also cherished how she had visited him many times in his dreams. Certain that she liked him as much as he liked her, he decided that finally on that day he was going to possess what truly made him happy. Bernard turned onto her regal driveway and parked his van behind her car. He then opened his dented door and jumped out with great enthusiasm. "Good morning, Michelle. Isn't it a beautiful day?" "Yes, it sure is. This is my favorite time of year," Michelle answered while blinking her sparkling blue eyes. "What brings you by this way? Someone having a cable crisis this morning?" Bernard laughed. "I had an installation to do this morning, and I saw you, so I thought I would make sure you weren't having any problems. We've had quite a few in this area this month." Michelle gave him a thoughtful smile, and instantly he relished the fact that that particular smile was just for him. No one but him. "No, not a single problem, but that's so sweet of you," she answered. He stepped closer to her, and while leaning in and handing her his business card, he emphasized, "If you have any problems, any at all, call me on my cell phone." He was close enough that he could smell her sweet perfume, and the smell put him under a spell of sorts, so much as that he couldn't help but close his eyes and breathe her in deeply. As he did so, Michelle's smile quickly faded as her eyes showed concern as she realized that he was smelling her. It made her very uncomfortable, and once again she began to move toward her car. "Well, thank you. If we have any problems, I will make sure my husband calls the company. But I'm sorry, I really must be going because I'm running very late," she said as she reached for her car door handle. His face tightened with fury, and his eyes briefly flashed rage when he had heard the word husband, but he was able to quickly regain his composure. He then realized that he had to do something quick. He couldn't just let her leave, at least not just yet. "Wait, before you go, let me go ahead and give you a new receiver box. That's what I am having to do for others. There is a defect in the bad boxes, and this might save you a service call, he smiled. Bernard walked to his van and then stepped up inside the back. Bernard walked to his van and then stepped up inside the back door, saying, "Here you go. If you just take this box from me, I'll just jump up front and move out of your way." Michel, glad that he said that he was going to leave, willingly walked up to the open door of the van and saw the closed brown box in his outstretched left hand. But quickly, as she reached for the box, he grabbed her wrist with his strong, free hand and pulled her into the van with him. She was completely caught off guard and didn't even have time to scream. Nothing but a gasp left her mouth before everything went black for her. Okay, that's all I'm going to read, and that's all I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to leave it there. So I hope that intrigues you just a little bit and everything to order my book. So I hope you enjoyed that, and sorry for some of the mistakes, since this is kind of my first video of doing anything like this, so bear with me. All right, until next time, y'all have a good night.